Well, the first indie showcase of the year, although it feels like we just had one. I could be wrong about that, but wasn't there one in January? It felt like they had showed something off in January. Maybe we just thought that they did because you know what? No, because we didn't get a direct until February. So shut up, Bill. You don't know what you're talking about. The Nindies Showcase. This is where Nintendo shows off a bunch of select independent games from independent publishers, and there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about in this one. And I'm not going to go through every single announcement and say something about everything. However, I will say stuff about the games that I was most excited to see. So we have to start at the end. We have to start at the end. There's really no other way to do it. We have to go right back to the end and talk about this ridiculousness that was given to us, and that is the Cadence of Hyrule. Cadence of Hyrule. Oh man, this is so great. I played Crypt of the Necrodancer on Steam, and it's a really, really good game. It's fantastically fun. And if you haven't played Crypt of the Necrodancer, then you should probably pick it up. It came out for the Nintendo Switch a while back too. And I didn't play it on the Switch, but I did play it on Steam, and it's a really, really fun game. The gist of the game, the way that the game plays, is that you are, how do I want to phrase this? You're basically doing like a roguelike dungeon where everything is kind of randomized, and you go through the dungeon, and as you go through the dungeon, there's monsters for you to kill and doors for you to open, and your job, the dancing part, is to do everything to the beat of the music, which is really, really cool and unique. And it's got pretty damn good music as well. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a really great roguelike, and it's also a really fun rhythm game. And now they were showing it off, and my first thing was, oh man, a sequel to Crypt of the Necrodancer. That's awesome. I'm excited about that. And then they, like, the music is going and going, and like you started to hear these familiar tones to the music, and you're like, wait a second, that sounds like Zelda music. And then they show Link and they show Zelda, and the art just looks great. But they called it Crypt of the Necrodancer featuring The Legend of Zelda, The Cadence of Hyrule. I think maybe we have a winner for the longest possible title in a game ever. Maybe that's a lot of characters, but I mean, the art style is very heavily inspired by A Link to the Past, and I'm very excited for this game. This is the number one thing that I was most excited about after watching I almost called it a direct, but the Nindies Showcase. But you know, that's not everything. You know, there's some other stuff. We went all the way to the end. Now let's go all the way back to the beginning, and let's talk about what they opened the show with, which was this really weird video of this guy pouring milk. I don't really get why they did that. It didn't make sense to me. As soon as I saw the coffee cup sitting on the desk in front of him, everybody knew what it was. And I know what they're trying to go for. I guess they're trying to go for some type of suspense, like, ooh, is it going to be Cuphead? Because we already had heard rumors that Cuphead was coming to the Nintendo Switch. You know, is it going to be Cuphead? Obviously it is. I mean, the cup was even the same shape as the cup that he had on his desk. And then he did this weird thing where he gets out this plastic mask, which is, I don't know if this is common in other places, but when I was a kid, I had a transparent mask that I wore to Halloween because we didn't have money to get new Halloween costumes every year. So we had a box of Halloween crap that we would dig through. And I remember more than one year grabbing this plastic mask that like had fake stubble on it and stuff, and it was a transparent mask so you could see your skin underneath, but it had a face painted on it So this guy reached over and grabbed this weird mask with a woman's face on it and put it on. The mask was too small for him. And then he started pouring the milk, and then sure enough, Cuphead and Mugman jumped out of the cup, and they showed off that it was running on the Switch. And I think that Cuphead is just a gorgeous game. If you've never played it or heard of it, it is a game where, oh, how do I want to phrase it? If you remember the old days of, I just screwed up my Zoom. If you remember the old days of, well, nobody listening to this remembers these from when they originally came out, but the old Mickey Mouse cartoons like Steamboat Willie and things like that, they had a certain art style, a certain aesthetic to them. And Cuphead kind of mirrors that aesthetic in a way that is so charming that I just want to play it so much. And I already own it. I have it on PC. It was gifted to me by a Twitch viewer a couple years ago, maybe a year ago. I can't remember. It's been a long time. And that game is super fun. It's really, really good. It's basically a side-scrolling run and gun game with this ridiculously good soundtrack that just sounds fantastic and looks fantastic, and all of the art is really, really great. Everything is hand drawn. And on my PC, and I assume on the Xbox, it ran at 60 frames per second, which just looked beautiful. I'm hoping that it also runs at that speed on the Switch. I hope that they wouldn't launch a game that is all about the animation and the visual style at a less than optimal frame rate. At least in my opinion, I don't think it would play nearly as good at 30 frames per second. That comes out on April 18th, so we are not going to have to wait very long to find out. Now, what's very interesting is Larry Herb, who is at Major Nelson on Twitter. He's like I think he's the head of Xbox. He tweeted out a picture of Cuphead is coming to your Nintendo Switch, and he said, and it will have Xbox Live support. Now, I clicked on the link, and that took me to like the Xbox Wire page, and it was a bunch of stuff about other games that are not, decidedly not Cuphead. So when I looked at that, I was a little confused as to what exactly he was referring to when he said, and it will have Xbox Live support. Does that just mean trophies, or does that mean that you can then use cross-platform to play online with another person who is on an Xbox and I'm on a Switch, and we're playing the game together? Because it does have, multiplayer. You can, it obviously has local multiplayer, but maybe you can play online. I never tried playing online on my PC because I don't know why. I just didn't. I don't even know if it had that for an option. But Cuphead's coming to the Switch, and I, for one, am really excited for it because that game is just great. So if you don't have it for some other platform, then you definitely want to pick it out. Also announced, games like Stranger Things 3, the game, comes out July 4th, which I think is right around the time when Stranger Things comes out for the for Netflix. So there's that. Red Lantern looked really, really cool. This is a game where you are in the Iditarod, and you are racing, doing a dog sled race. Basically, it looks so cool. I love the art style. Really, really pretty art style. They had this cool thing where a bear attacked in the middle of the race, and it's just such a unique thing that I don't think I've ever heard of a game that's about dog sledding, which is pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to the Red Lantern. I think that's going to be pretty rad. What's the release date on this? It's coming 2019. That's all that it says. It doesn't say exactly when. Then Double Fine which are the people who made whatever that Jack Black game is. And I know my buddy Brovd is going to be screaming at me for not remembering it. Brutal Legend. Okay, there we go. I remembered it before he got to yell at me. They made Brutal Legend. They made a bunch of other games. I think there was one that they made called The Cave, where you had to like solve puzzles and stuff. And Rad is this. It's a 3D action roguelike, and it's set in a post-apocalyptic world. You play a teenager is the protagonist, and you have to journey into the Fallow, which is this ever-changing, procedurally generated wasteland that holds the secrets to the past and answers for the future. There's like toxins, and you mutate your character because of those toxins. So you'll end up getting new abilities, but they are randomized, which I think is really, really cool. Then there was a side-scrolling beat 'em up like punching and slashing game called Katana Zero, which I thought looked pretty rad. Had like an 8/16-bit style to it, which I always like. Nuclear Throne is a roguelike with a top-down. It's a roguelike top-down shooter. It's got 12 different playable characters. It has seven main worlds, and it has 30 ways to mutate your characters and more than 120 weapons. That game is already out now, so make sure that you go check that out if you haven't already. This next one I am very excited about, and that is Super Crate Box. Now, if you have never heard of Super Crate Box, you are missing out. This game is fantastic. I got it for free on Steam for some reason. I don't even know why. Like, I just found it one day in my list of games, and I was like, "What?" I went looking to see if I had bought it at some point. I did not. I got it for free. And it's not even the kind of game where you get it for free and then you have to pay a bunch of money. I don't think it'll be free on the Nintendo Switch, but it was free on Steam. And you play this little dude with a gun, and basically the way that the game works is you've got a gun and you shoot enemies, and the enemies come from the top and go down to the bottom, and then when they fall into the fire in the bottom, they come back out the top, and now they're mad. Think about the original Mario Brothers, the way that game played, where the turtles came. Whoa! I just hit my microphone. Where the turtles came out of the pipes, and then they would come down, and if you missed one and he got into the pipe on the bottom and ended up on the top, he was mad and more powerful and harder to kill and harder to deal with. It's the same kind of thing with these guys, except now you've got a gun, and when you kill enemies, they have a chance to drop a box. And if you go pick up that box, it gets rid of your old gun and gives you some new gun. And you don't know what kind of gun it is, I don't think, off the top of my head. It's been a few years since I've played it. And your job is just to pick up as many boxes as you can. So you want to kill the enemies, get the boxes, and every time you pick up a box, your score goes up 1. And you just keep going until you get killed. And you will get killed. It's a hard game, but it's also really, really fun. And it's that kind of game where the respawn is so fast that it's really hard to say, okay, I'm done, because there's always that, well, I could go one more. It's a great game, and this is going to be a day one purchase for me. It comes out April, so it comes out next month. I'm very, very excited that that's coming to the Switch. I hope that it has like online leaderboards and stuff, so like I can see how I stack up against my friends in this game, because it's just awesome. They also announced Ultra Bugs, Super Crate Box, Nuclear Throne. All those are by the same developer, which is called Vlambeer Arcade, or just Vlambeer. So I don't know anything about them. They showed off a really weird game called My Friend Pedro, where you're working for a crazy banana and you have like the like Matrix abilities. It's a side-scrolling shooter. There's a really cool pinball style game called Creature in the Well, which I thought looked pretty rad. And now another one that I was probably most excited. So it was Zelda. I was most excited for Zelda, without a doubt. Then the second was Cuphead, and then the third I already bought because I couldn't resist, and that's Blaster Master Zero 2. You go back to the launch of the Nintendo Switch, there was very slim pickings for what you could get on the Nintendo Switch. And one of the games that I don't know if it was a launch game or if it came out like the second week or something, but it was from Inti Creates and it was called Blaster Master Zero. And I adored that game. I had so much fun with it. Great, great game. It's a little Metroidvania game, and it's based on a Blaster Master, which was on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And you play Jason, who's this little tiny dude, and you get in like this big robotic mech tank thing, and you can drive around in this 2D side-scrolling thing. And basically, you traverse the world in 2D when you're in the tank, and then when there's a door too small for the tank, you get out and you can you get out of the tank and you can go in there. And now instead of a side-scrolling game, it's a top-down game. It's really, really fun. And if you've not ever checked out Blaster Master Zero, I suggest you check it out. And then if you like that, then check out Blaster Master Zero 2, because it's really good. And Inti Creates did a great job on that game. I think that they nailed it, and I'm excited to play more of it. I already played probably an hour or so. Then we've got Pine. Pine is this very cool looking game where it's third person over the shoulder camera, almost looks like a RPG adventure game. And we will talk about the rest in just this next one. I don't actually know anything about it. I must have gotten distracted when this one was on the screen. So it's called Blood Roots. I don't know anything about it. It has a very, very cool art style, but again, I'm not sure what kind of game it is, other than it says that you're a character who's been left for dead, and you want to get revenge. And basically, it seems like an action game. Then there was Overland, which looks like this really cool kind of, how do I want to phrase it? Kind of like a narrative style game where you have to solve puzzles and go from one place to the next. Then there's Darkwood, which is where it's a survival horror game. It's top down. You've got like a gun, and you have to like I always like games that do this, where there's an area where you can't see, if like there's shadows, and you can't see into those shadows if your character couldn't see into those shadows. And it's interesting to see a survival horror game take place from a top-down perspective. I think that's kind of cool. Neocab is a really weird thing where you're a ride-sharing driver and you have to solve some mystery, and it almost seems like it just might be like a visual novel, but I'm not really sure. And then there was Swim Sanity, which is this cool 4-player game where you're swimming underwater and you can pick up guns and stuff. It's a side-scrolling game, and you have to fight things with your friends. And it has classic dual-stick analog controls, as well as motion aiming. And you can play both locally and online. So those were the things that jumped out to me for the Nintendo. Almost did it. Almost called it a Nintendo Direct for the Nindies Showcase, and I think that we've got some fun stuff coming up.